Thank you. These are interesting times, aren't they? It's over? Well, perhaps. Remember the flash crash? Dow lost 1,000 points in a half hour. I'm going to argue that the fundamental unsustainability of the way in which we do business is what drove that collapse, and that if we don't correct it, it will drive collapse after collapse after collapse. Jonathan Porritt is of this opinion, Sir John Beddington as well. We know what unsustainability looks like. It's the Russian fires, it's the Pakistani floods, 20 million people underwater. Water, Tara mentioned. This is a much tougher issue than energy. We get a free daily increment of energy from the sun. The water we have on Earth is all the water we're ever going to have. Goldman is already saying water is the petroleum of the next decade. Energy. It remains a problem. It was reported in this country, not in mine, where this is widely unknown, but the IEA, International Energy Agency, which has for years been saying the world's awash in oil, started in 2007 to sound some warnings. 2009, the whistleblowers here alleged that the IEA had been cooking its books to pleasure the past American administration, and so as not to cause world panic, your government commissioned an industry task force chaired by the managing director of Royal Dutch Shell to say, what is the situation? Fatih Birol, the chief economist of the IEA, came out with a report December of 2009 saying that, well, 3 to 4 years and then expect some real constraints. The last time these constraints started to hit, oil went to $150 a barrel, and within 6 months we had the 2008 recession. The Economist this week is talking about if, given that Libya is going offline, if Algeria goes offline, we'll have oil at $200 a barrel. Now, yes, these are surprises. Yes, these are idiosyncrasies, but these numbers point to the notion that this is going to be with us a long time. And if any of you have been following WikiLeaks a month or so back, the Saudis apparently are over-reporting reserves by about 40%. Yes, we need to find 6 more Saudis. The real problem, though, is the Saudi we've got is peaking, as are many of the other fields. Kuwait's already peaked, Mexico's peaked. Your mental model of how the world works determines what you do. This is the map that was given to the early Spanish explorers when they headed west out of the Caribbean towards California. You look at the Caribbean, Florida, the Yucatan, it's not bad. You look at California, you have a little problem. And literally, the first guys to climb the Sierra Mountains carried boats. They dismantled longboats, strapped the boards on the sides of burros, and carted them over the mountains because they believed they were going to find a beach. Well, they found a lot of sand. And they wrote back to the King of Spain and said, California's not an island. And back came the word, yes, it is. That's what the maps say. What are the maps that we're carrying in our heads about how the world works that aren't true? How many of you have read the book Black Swan? Whoa, here's your homework. Nassim Taleb, despite being insufferably arrogant, was one of the few people to accurately predict the 2008 collapse, its causes and timing. He takes the title from the story that here and in Europe, in the old days, swans were white until some fool bumped into Australia, found these very large birds that were black. They said, well, those aren't swans. Swans are by definition white. Until the ornithologist said, sorry, they're swans. At which point everybody said, oh yeah, we knew that, thereby failing to learn whatever lesson might have been there for them. Taleb says everything that matters in history, in business, in innovation, and in your personal life is like that. You didn't think of it till it happened. Unlike the bird, it changes everything. And he said these low probability, high impact events are accelerating. Winners will be those who accept this notion, expose themselves to the sort of information that allows them, when one of these things pops up, to go, ooh, swan, and then rigorously exploit them. So how many of you would have invested in these guys? Particularly the 13-year-old down in the corner. We're facing some formidable swans. Perhaps these aren't swans because we can put names to them, but collectively these are going to change everything about how you do business. We're losing every major ecosystem on the planet. Go read Global Biodiversity Outlook 3, released last May by Dr. Tom Lovejoy of the Smithsonian. Global climate crisis, yes. Economic instability, Volatile energy prices, anybody know what it is today? It hit 100 a week or so back. China and India are in the world market for essentially all resources and water and food. What's going on in the Mideast right now? What caused that? Well, years of oppressive dictators, but how about a food riot in Tunisia? And then what I call the sustainability imperative, and when I'm done you can tell me if this is good news or not. Collectively, these and other, what Royal Dutch Shell calls drivers of change, are going to change everything. Those of you who have been following this field of lean know that there are huge opportunities. Womack and Jones pointed out the 4 interlinked elements of continuous flow of value as defined by the customer at the pull of the customer in search of perfection. They didn't say a thing about sustainability, and they didn't really say a thing about green. But in search of perfection and the elimination of muda, the Japanese term for waste, this is not a bad definition of how it is that you go about achieving a more sustainable world. And for those of you scribbling, I'll give you these slides. Here's perfection. The natural world, 3.8 billion years of experience. Nature creates conditions conducive to life. Here's what we do. These are the synthetic compounds now found in mother's milk. For those of you who are fans of breastfeeding, all other forms of milk, aldehydes, ketones, phenols, furfural. What are we doing to ourselves? We'd best answer that question because nature runs a very rigorous testing laboratory in which products that don't work get recalled by the manufacturer. This is a cautionary tale for a young species like ours. So we asked nature, what do you think? How are we doing? Climate. We're hearing a lot now about climate is a hoax. Mr. Lomborg's made a career of it. In my country, these boys are now buying elections, politicians, and endeavoring, they are the funding behind the Tea Party, by the way, and endeavoring to overturn democracy, even Newsweek. Sure, the science is uncertain. That's what science is, they argue. Here's the science on climate change that I like. And it doesn't matter. And I say that with all deference to the great climate scientists, but let's assume the skeptics are right. Climate change is a hoax. Frankly, don't go to the casino on the odds of that being true. But if all you care about is being a profit-maximizing capitalist, you will do exactly what you would do if you were scared to death about climate change, because we know how to solve this problem at a profit. Let's go. We can argue about the science in the bar. This is the thesis of my new book that will be out. You can order it now on Amazon. Be out in April. The route to prosperity is solving the climate crisis because it gives us the greatest return on investment of any investment in the society. It's not, again, it's not unlike what we've been talking about with lean. Lean originated with the Toyota system. Toyota became the world's largest car maker on the backs of a little Beetle-looking vehicle called the Prius. That was super efficient. Toyota lost being the world's #1 car company because it concentrated on competing with the American car companies in building large trucks. And the current head of Toyota admits, we sought to grow at the expense of quality. Taiichi Ohno's 7 forms of waste, of muda, mura, muri. These are the core principles of lean. And it is unfortunate, and it has remained a mystery to me, why the lean community, which is making its way into industry, is not in conversation, except for this conference, with the green community, because it is essentially the same argument, and you can't do one without the other. You're not going to succeed at either. Eliminating waste is better business. This is the winner of the Not My Job Award. If it's not your job to eliminate waste, what are you doing? And are you delivering genuine value to your company? I would argue no. I work with companies that take this sort of thing very seriously. So Diversey, a big cleaning products company, is finding that every dollar they invest in climate protection is returning them $2 in profit. They're projecting 160% return on investment on their investments to cut their use of energy and to clean up their processes. We walked into a company, had 6,300 computers and monitors that they left on 24/7. Because of some urban myths, it shortens the life of the computer to turn it off, turn it on. No. IT needs it left on 24/7. No. In that company, merely publishing a paper, a policy to employees, turn the darn things off if you're not sitting in front of them, would save them $700,000 each year. This is free money. It's not supposed to exist in society. The neoclassical economists will tell you if these savings existed, they would have been captured. This is a real story. In my country, $2.8 billion each year wasted buying and burning energy to run computers that have nobody sitting in front of them. When you go home, you might want to look at your company's computers. Are they on if nobody's there? Ford Motor Company did. They reckon they'll save about $1 million just from turning off unused computers. Same thing in small businesses. We walked into a big warehouse, 7 million square foot distribution center, floor to ceiling boxes with 500-watt light bulbs shining down on the tops of boxes. The guys down below had task lighting so they could see where they were going, just like Richard's women with the sewing machines. We said, y'all have a switch? That would save them $650,000. Again, free money. Again, a real story. In my country, we waste 5 to 10 billion each year leaving lights on in buildings where there's nobody home. It's redundant and unnecessary. It shouldn't surprise anybody that my country uses twice the energy per pound of product that is typical in Europe. Well, you guys have signed the Kyoto Protocol. You have effective government, which is something we haven't had for years, or at least more or less effective government.
We debate that one.
And you have some pretty smart companies. I'm not a scientist, said Sir Terry Leahy, but I listen when scientists say that if we fail to mitigate climate change, the consequences will be stark. Comes a moment when it's clear what you must do. I'm determined that Tesco be a leader in helping create a low-carbon economy. I don't underestimate how hard it is. We are going to have to rethink the way we live and work. Tesco is, and doing very well by it. Again, zero-carbon supermarkets, transportation, the same sort of thing that we heard with Marks & Spencer. Marks & Spencer's do it even better. Plan A. You heard Richard say, when we announced it, we had no earthly idea how to achieve it. This is a very important point. What M&A did was set a BHAG, Jim Collins' term, big, hairy, audacious goal. Setting BHAGs drives your innovation. And again, they're on track to achieve essentially all of the goals that they had set themselves. So now they're going back and setting even further goals. And as we heard in the conversation, the real question with Tesco, with M&A, with all of these consumer-facing companies is, what's your business model? Is your fundamental business model sustainable? Probably not. How do you transfer If you're a company that lives by behaving unsustainably, how do you make the transition? This, I think, is now the cutting edge of sustainability. eBay is making a very nice living reselling stuff. If you buy a used computer on eBay, cuts the greenhouse gas emissions at least in half. And eBay is now calculating the carbon savings from reselling stuff. General Electric, this is perhaps the best example of greenwashing in the world. When GE announced Ecomagination, all they did was badge as green products they were already making. Okay, hypocrisy is the first step to real change. They were very surprised when the sales of these green badged products soared because of the green badging, doubling with huge back orders merely because they badged it as green. GE had set a goal of cutting its emissions 1%. They actually cut it 4%. Now they are realizing that this is one of their best product lines. The revenues of the green products rose to the point that if counted separately, it would be a Fortune 130 company. Their revenue